All right, we're here at the Lundy's Lane battlefield, or the remnants of it. There isn't a whole lot left to be seen of the battlefield. A lot of it's preserved here in the Drummond Hill Cemetery. You see the monument a little bit farther up the hill. And then a lot of this ground constituted a good portion of the original battlefield. Now the battlefield's bisected by a modern busy road, Lundy's Lane, and there's a section of it preserved on the other side of the road farther up the hill. We'll have a look at that in a few moments. There's a few notable graves here in the cemetery. This one's quite poignant. It's a crypt or grave to Sir Cecil Bishop, formerly of the 1st Foot Guards. He was also here in Upper Canada as an inspecting field officer of militia. He was badly wounded and died from his wounds suffered the British attack on Black Rock across the Niagara River, and he was buried here in 1813. Here's another interesting monument to Robert Dawsey Patterson. It's hard to read the script on here, but it talks about how he had served in the peninsula under both Sir John Moore and the Duke of Wellington, but he fell before Fort Erie, so that would have been in 1814. So he was the 4th son of John Patterson of the city of Norwich, England, where his name is held in honor. On the backside it says this was erected by order of his surviving brothers and sisters in 1880. And here's a monument to Laura Seacourt, not her grave, but a monument where it highlights her walk from Queenston to the British outpost at Deque Falls to warn the British of an imminent American attack, which resulted in the British victory at Beaver Dams. Also referenced is her husband, James Seacourt. Well, I stand corrected. If I walked all the way around the monument and read it all, apparently this is where Laura Seacourt is buried as well. So it's her maiden name, Laura Ingersoll. So there you go, Laura. So here's the actual monument here in the cemetery. This was erected in 1895 by the Canadian Parliament. They're calling it a victory by the British and Canadian forces on this field. I think more of a stalemate. It was a very difficult, bloody evening battle. Both sides were exhausted and withdrew from the field late at night. So a lot of the fighting happened well into the evening, into darkness. So a little bit later this evening, you see a number of chairs set up. The local community gathers every July 25th to commemorate the fallen from the Battle of Lundy's Lane. So here's a historic marker on the battlefield. It describes a little bit of the battle, talking about what occurred here. Also in this area, an interesting plaque that was added around 2014 on the bicentennial. So it's talking about how the 21st Infantry and their commanding officer, Colonel James Miller, with his statement, "I'll try, sir," became the regimental model for the 5th U.S. Infantry. Here is a monument. This marks the grave of Abraham Hull. Also, there are some markers here where remains of unknown American soldiers were buried. And then finally we have this little bronze statue in honor of Drummond. Interesting. I don't know if this is a replacement or it was recovered. This was stolen and it was absent for a number of years. So. That's the most modest of the graves and monuments here on the Drummond Hill Cemetery. I'll have to look up Sergeant Heslop and see what I can find on him.
Well, I have to admit to messing up. I had taken some videos on the opposite side of the street showing the battlefield. Instead, we'll have to imagine what the video might look like from these couple of photos. The first one gives a sense for how much of a defined hill the battlefield really incorporated. And then also what's interesting is you can see a marker down below for Ruth Redman. She was a Niagara Falls teacher who lived in the area of the battlefield, and she made it her personal mission to buy up properties to preserve as much of the battlefield as she could. And then she donated this land or gave it to the city of Niagara Falls on the condition that a memorial garden be created and it forever be preserved as a monument or a testament to the history of what she called her boys, the men that fought the Battle of Lundy's Lane. And an interesting aside, her ashes are actually spread here in this park. And then another photo showing the more of the land that she had preserved. I believe it was 1.5 acres in total.
It's not so much now anymore, although it still draws visitors, but in the aftermath of the battle, battlefield tourism was extremely popular. This hotel was built in 1836 to capitalize on the popularity of battlefield visits. Veterans of the War of 1812 were on hand to give tours of the battlefield and immediate areas. And there was actually a succession of observation towers where people could go up and get a much better bird's eye view of the battlefield. On 3 of the faces of the monuments, there is listed those killed in action at the battle, so this would reflect the British and Canadian dead. Right, this is new-ish, a marker highlighting Samuel Street and his wife Abigail Hyde. Samuel Street was a very prominent local businessman, and then also served in the 3rd Lincoln Militia, so would have seen service during the War of 1812. But Street was known at one time as one of the richest men in Upper Canada. Nothing to do with the War of 1812, but I always love checking this out. What a remarkable individual. So, Burr Lockhart Plato, born into slavery, and then he ended up being elected to political office here. He was a counselor for the village of Niagara Falls. Well done, Mr. Plato. I think this also serves to illustrate the slope, you know, where the monument is, and the height of the hill that was contested during the Battle of Lundy's Lane.